Welcome to Wisdom for Life, where we sit through philosophy and find practical advice that you can use in your everyday life. Hi, I'm Dan Hayes, and I'm joined by my co-host, Dr. Greg Sadler, and today we're going to talk about
wading back into the deep end of AITA. And if you don't know what that acronym means, we'll explain it shortly. I do want to say this is going to be our fifth show where we've considered AITA posts from Reddit, and there is a lot of practical advice that we can call out of these, but I think a lot of it is don't be like these people. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, a lot of times there's some A's going around, so
we can explain what AITA is.
So, am I the a-hole? Is the way that it is described, and it's people asking for advice from, hopefully independent third parties on this website Reddit. If their situation, who in that situation is the a-hole? Is it them? Is it someone else? Or no one's the a-hole? Or everyone's the a-hole?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's labeled everybody sucks, right? Is the fourth option. And these are actually really quite good. I've considered using these in my ethics classes as case studies because they're taken, as far as we know, from real life, and people are genuinely confused, wondering whether they did the right thing. A lot of times people are second guessing themselves, or they've been told by other people that they're a jerk and they're trying to solicit some feedback from other people. I often see a lot of good analysis in the comments. Is that your experience with these? Do you think the commenters are pretty on point?
Well, I guess usually the ones that are voted are pretty good. If you go down into sort by controversial, then you get some interesting things. But yeah, it's kind of a wisdom of the crowds. Like, we're all social beings, and that we have a lifetime of inferences of how not to, annoy other people. And so usually the cream rises to the top there. But it's fun. And I guess I love these episodes in part because it allows us to really flex our different ethical systems. And so we're maybe this is Kantian, maybe this is deontological. What system would work best for this particular thing? Or we could go through a number of different systems, and sometimes you'll get conflicting answers based on those conflicting systems.
That's true. One of the things I really like about them is that they are taken from ordinary life. So there's a lot of family situations, as we're going to see. There's a lot of things having to do with school or the workplace. There's always a lot of things having to do with family events like parties or weddings. So we've got quite a slate. I don't know if we'll actually get to every single case that we thought was interesting. What do you think? Should we just jump right in?
Absolutely. Let's go for it.
Okay. So do you want to read the first one, or do you want me to?
Sure, I'll go for it.
Okay.
This is a preemptive Am I the A-hole? It says, will I be the a-hole for getting a cat when my husband doesn't want one? I, a 40-year-old female, and my husband, Anthony, a 40-year-old male, are having a disagreement without getting a cat. We have 2 children, 1 adult, daughter, 21, and soon-to-be teen, 12. We also have an adult daughter's fiancé living with us, Paul, 22, male. I have had cats my whole life, and our last cat of 14 years died about 5 years ago. A and I agreed to wait a little while before getting a new pet. I work full-time and the sole source of income, and I just finished getting my master's degree. I have been a stay-at-home parent for the last 10 years. I have wanted to get a new cat for about 3 years, but put it off due to school. I stated that I would like to get a cat when I am done with school, as a reward for myself for the accomplishment. He is strongly against getting a pet, as he said he doesn't want to take care of it, that they are expensive, and will take frequent weekend trips in the summer. Fridays to Saturdays, sometimes we have to leave on a Thursday night if I'm not on call. I've been very sad about not getting a cat, and it has been the longest amount of time I've been without one. I feel like the perk of a cat is that they are so independent. So I do the grocery shopping and 95% of the cooking. We keep our houses relatively tidy, so our housework is not too overwhelming. He does all the outdoor duties. I feel like I do a lot and don't ask for anything. I have all of my friends telling me to just get the cat, as well as rest of the people in the house, his sister and mother. I'm trying to be respectful of his wishes, but I'm hurt that he is so comfortable with how sad I'm about his refusal to get a cat. And I have told him this. He said that if I bring a cat home, he'll get rid of it while I'm at work, which is so hurtful, and the reason I haven't done it when I want it. Every time I bring it up, he gets frustrated and angry at me. I recently had someone offer me a cat that they can't have. I want it so bad. Will I be the a-hole if I just went and got the cat?
This is one of those cases where you're tempted to say, get the cat, ditch the guy, Very simple solution. There's a lot of things in here that seem like red flags to me. If he has been a stay-at-home parent for the last 10 years, it doesn't seem like he does an awful lot around the place for somebody who is, whose spouse is the breadwinner. And, the saying that if she brings a cat home, he'll get rid of it, that's, to me, a very aggressive move on his part. Maybe it's hyperbolic, maybe there's more to the story there, but that seems like a complete jerk move to me.
Yeah, I guess that I also really picked up on the whole, I'll get rid of it. But I guess this is two people making moves for a unilateral decision. It's like, if you do this unilaterally, then I'm going to do this unilaterally.
Yeah. But at the expense of an animal.
Oh, yeah. I guess then the main thing here is, why is it so difficult to, try to meet the needs of your partner? Or at least the desires of this. A lot of this stuff is, kind of frosting. It's not the meat of the thing at all. It's the accoutrements. And so really it's okay, why... I don't understand why this is such a hard ask for him, and it seems like he's unwilling to actually have that deep conversation, especially because his main objection seems to be that they might not be able to go on long trips, whereas most cats are independent. Maybe for the first bit, you gotta, especially if you get a young cat, but if you've got a shelter cat, they're usually pretty dang independent.
He also says that it's expensive, which is quite true. I mean, vet bills and, food and litter and stuff like that. But, I mean, they've got kids, and kids are way more expensive than a cat is. And he's not contributing anything to the household finances, as far as I can tell. So why does he even have an opinion on expense? What is he's the accountant, budget, doing all the budgeting and balancing the books? That seems a little off to me.
Yeah. And with the amount of tech that there is to deal with cats, the main thing is to clean the litter box. There's literally robotic litter boxes nowadays.
Oh, true, yeah.
Or I've also found pellets to be really great, these wood pellets that just it makes the whole kitty litter seem like an old world technology.
The other thing that really struck me about this one is she says, I'm hurt that he's so comfortable with how sad I am about his refusal to get a cat. And so, if you're in a committed relationship, and they're married, right? And they have 2 children, and you're going to be okay long term with standing in the way of your spouse's clearly expressed desires that have been on hold for a long time, and you're fine with them feeling, whatever it is, sad, anxious, angry, pick whatever emotion you want, that's a sign there's something really wrong there, in my view.
Right. That is also very, a big old red flag. I guess I would say get some marriage counseling. I don't know who's...
Yeah.
I also don't know like what his hang-up is. It feels like there's not enough information for me to like definitively say if anyone is particularly the a-hole or will be the a-hole.
I think he is an a-hole. Just going from what we've got here. And it's also, it's not just her. It's
all the friends,
all of her friends, and the rest of the people in the house, his sister and mother. So, he's really standing out by his refusal here, I'd say. But she's definitely isn't the a-hole.
Yeah. She's not. And one of the things that, like, you get a cat, as long as this cat is not like a terror, they're very lovable. It's he's probably gonna like it if they've had cats in the past.
Maybe he had a problem with their cat in the past. Again, like you pointed out, we don't have enough information here. So yeah.
All right. You want to hit this next one here?
Sure. Am I the a-hole for cussing out my son's math teacher? When my older son was going to high school, they had an amazing math teacher. Now she unfortunately retired, and the school has a new teacher that is much worse. My 16-year-old male son, I guess that kind of makes sense, started having issues with math. His grades dropped significantly. His teacher called me in to basically tell me that my son isn't doing well in class. I contacted another parent, and it turns out he's not the only kid with this issue. Basically, the teacher is so incompetent that she doesn't even try to explain complicated exercises to the students. She just hopes they will somehow get it and gives them loads of homework that they don't even understand. An example, she gave them a test with really complex cube root equations, even though she only briefly explained the square roots. So when she called me in, she basically told me that I should have explained that at home. I was very pissed because it's the teacher's duty to explain things, not mine. I have 2 kids, one of whom is chronically ill, and I have a full-time job on top of that. My kids are fed and clothed and well-raised, and being their math teacher isn't my responsibility. So I said, I don't expect you to feed and clothe my kid. Why the F do you expect me to teach him? I manage my responsibilities completely fine. Can you manage yours for effing once? She said I was behaving inappropriately and threatened to report me to CPS. I said, good effing luck, and left. She told the school principal about it, and he contacted me saying I verbally assaulted the teacher. So, what do you think? Is she an a-hole for cussing out her son's math teacher? I'd say
that everyone's the a-hole.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Maybe not the principal. I don't know what the principal is doing or what they know exactly, but yeah, I feel like both the teacher, if this is true from what we read, is delinquent in their duties, as well as that the mother didn't have to curse at her. She could have said the important thing without getting to the cursing. I feel like she let the anger in the situation control her more than it ought.
Yeah, I can understand that reaction on her part. Things will work better if you don't swear at people. But I also think that this, the teacher threatening to report her to CPS, if that indeed happened, that's way over the top. That's a super defensive move, and it's a power play. I don't know if it'd be different if she was like, F you, F you, F you. Instead, she's saying, why the F do you expect me to teach him? Can you manage yours for effing once? And then she said, good effing luck. So it's not as if she's swearing directly at her, calling her names or something, right? Mm-hmm. She's using the F word as a emphasizer, it seems to me. So I don't think that's verbally assaulting somebody.
Oh, I don't agree that's verbally assaulting, but I also feel like, if you actually want to get, do you want to be angry and do the things that anger is going to tell you to do, or do you want to actually get results?
Yeah.
And that's not productive in the second desire there.
Yeah. So maybe she's a semi a-hole, not a full a-hole. And the teacher's an a-hole, for being a bad teacher.
Especially for that CPS comment.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, also, if she's in over her head, she should be seeking out a mentor. She should be like figuring out how to do the math stuff that she's supposed to be teaching the kids how to do. You know?
Right.
I mean, if I was an English teacher and I had a small vocabulary, I think I'd get myself one of those desk calendars that has, vocabulary words throughout the year, and I'd expand it. If I wasn't quite sure how to do cube roots, maybe I'd brush up on that.
Right. Hey, you only got to be a week ahead of your students.
So this is a bit of a digression. That's what one of my friends and colleagues actually says as a college professor, and he's been doing it, 30 years or so. And he's like, that's all you got to do. Stay a week ahead and you're just fine. All right. Should we move on to the next one?
Yeah. So am I the a-hole for cutting off internet after asking my roommates to give me their share of the bill? The house I live in doesn't have internet included with the rent, and so it's on the tenants to get their own service and to pay for it. I'm fine with this arrangement, and my roommates have been fine with it for the last 3 years. There's 3 of us living in the house. The internet bill is my name, and I'm sure to pay it each month, and my roommates pay their third of the bill, I guess. I let them pay when they get around to it each month. I have never had a problem with this as long as they pay me. This month, they still haven't paid me, so I asked them about it. They said that they aren't going to pay since the bill is not on their name. I told them that if they don't pay me by the end of the week, I will cut off the internet access. I gave them the weekend to pay me and nothing. I texted both of them on Monday morning asking them to pay me or I'll be cutting off their access and changing the password. They haven't responded. So I changed the password, and now I'm getting texts from both of them saying that I am such an a-hole. I am not going to give them the new password until they pay me. The roommates
are a-holes.
Yeah. That's cut and dry. That's contractualism. If you want to
This seems perfectly reasonable behavior on his part to me.
Yeah, he gave them more than enough time.
Exactly. Yeah. So I see in this that he gave them basically 2 notices, and they blew them off each time. Pay them by the end of the week, gave them the weekend to pay, texted them. I think 3 times he actually said, "Hey, you gotta pay me," and they've been doing it for 3 years. So, I don't know. Maybe there's something weird going on here that we're missing, or
if this is all it is, then it's pretty cut and dry. And if it's not, if there's some other conflict that's going on, maybe there's interpersonal or romantic issues,
okay,
or some other issue within the living arrangement that is off.
Yeah,
sometimes a tenant will refuse to pay their landlord because they haven't fixed the lights or something. Whatever is the issue, because you're not providing that service. But we don't know. But that's pretty
there's nothing in this that suggests that that's the case to me.
Yeah,
I mean and it's weird that they say it's not in their name, so we're not going to pay it. I mean, they've been doing it that entire time, so why that shift? We just don't know, right?
Right. That's why it seems odd.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is one of those cases that we can generalize and we can say, listen, if there's something that one person is footing the bill for and you've made an arrangement, you got to stick to the arrangement. And if you don't, they're perfectly within their rights to say, okay, you don't get that service. It could be like the water bill. It could be cable. It could be, I don't know, a magazine subscription if people still indeed, do that anymore today. I don't know.
What? Sir, what are magazines that you speak of?
I've seen them. People still send them out to us. It's weird too, because we also get these massive, this is a total digression, these massive Uline catalogs that are, super glossy. They weigh like 3-4 pounds. And neither my wife or I are ever going to order anything out of that, but they just keep sending them. They just keep wasting all that money and paper and ink on that. Anyway, back to this.
They make great fire starters.
I'm sure they do, but I think that there's a lot of chemicals in that paper, and I don't know it would be good for anybody in the room to be exposed to that much of it. But they are probably pretty flammable.
So the next one there.
Okay. Am I the a-hole for refusing to have a fully child-free wedding? I recently proposed to my long-term girlfriend, and we're planning for a wedding in summer next year. Everything is in still very early stages. My fiance has expressed that she wants a child-free wedding, which I am all down for, but I want to make one exception. My 15-year-old son, I had him from a previous relationship, and we have evenly split custody of him. Until now, my fiance has gotten along great with him. We've had days out as a family. She's gone to see his games. He plays ice hockey, and she's even taken him out on fun days, just the two of them. I brought up that I wanted to make an exception to the no kids rule for my son. She shot the idea down straight away and said she didn't want anyone under 16 there, as she doesn't want to feel like she or anyone else has to babysit on her special day. I told her that no one would have to babysit him. He's 15. She knows he's well-behaved and a generally quiet kid. So then she changed her reasoning and asked why I wanted my old family and life on the day I was supposed to be making a commitment to her and our new family. I told her while I will be making a commitment to her, my son will still be very much my son and my family. She then equated it to wanting my ex at our wedding, which I do not and have never asked. I told her that I don't care about the aesthetics of the wedding. She can pick everything else, the food, the aesthetic, the music, the dress, but all I want is my family at my wedding, my parents, my sisters, and my son. That is my only ultimatum when it comes to our wedding. She started calling me controlling by giving me an ultimatum and said I had initially agreed to a child-free wedding and now I'm gaslighting her. I said we can have a mainly child-free wedding, but with this one exception, an expectation that guests can't even complain about being unfair since the only child is the son of the groom. She called me a jerk and is now not talking to me. I really think this is a reasonable want, but maybe I'm not seeing something. So, am I the a-hole? What do you think? Is he the a-hole?
No. All right. So
who is?
So we she is.
Yeah.
She is. I guess my first point here is it seems like she made this rule specifically, no one under 16.
Yeah.
To make sure that his son is not there. Specifically because she does not want any vestiges of his old wife and old, or at least partner, and old family to be there. And I think that's incredibly petty.
It's interesting, too, that she's forged a relationship with him prior to the marriage, but it seems like she thinks that by getting married, it's transforming the relationship, and now his son can be sort of pushed out, excluded, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know of most any parents that are
no good
just
parents.
Good shuffling off their children.
Yeah. There's two other things in here that I think are really worth noting. So the first is she wasn't straightforward about what her real reasoning was. I think that's always a problem when people say something and it seems like, this is just about being polite or something like that. And then you get, well, what's the real reason? What's really driving this? And then they come out and say it because they didn't get their way the first time. She should have been straightforward and said, I've got this issue with you having your son because it's a proxy for your ex-wife, and I don't want that involved in my wedding. She shouldn't have come up with, babysitting or stuff like that. And then her accusing him of that prevalent word these days, gaslighting, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing in here that's remotely like gaslighting. And she sounds like the kind of person who uses that term in a sloppy way to mean manipulating or fooling or something like that. But she's the one who's actually, if anybody's doing gaslighting in a very broad sense, she'd be the one, right?
Yeah, it still wouldn't be gaslighting in the technical sense.
Yeah.
This is her not wanting. It seems like she knows, at least at some point, that what her ask is not an acceptable ask.
Yeah,
and she's doing everything in order to not actually say that ask.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too that he's really asking, am I not seeing something? Am I, did I somehow cross some ethical line? Am I the a-hole? When clearly he's been very accommodating.
Right. I guess I think he's very confused considering like his talking about how she's created an independent relationship with him as well, treated him nicely.
Yeah.
So he can't fathom.
Oh, right.
Potentially why she has such an aversion to him.
This is interesting, and I might be reading way, way too much into this. I don't think they should get married to begin with. But if she gave the appearance of forming a good, solid connection with his son, basically to get in good with the dad and keep everything moving along, and then wants to exclude the son after they get married, then what's to say she wouldn't do exactly the same thing to the dad?
Mm-hmm. It feels like there's trying to create a new in-group and out-group. Like the new in-group is the new family, the out-group is the old family. And so like I'm trying to I'm going to grab virtue ethics. What is it to be an excellent father? And to be an excellent father is probably not to exclude your children from one of the largest, most important events of your life.
Yeah. And you could say similarly, what does it mean to be a good spouse to somebody who already has commitments? You marry somebody who has kids, well, you're going to be involved with those kids just as much as if they have, I don't know, like a business or they have pets or something like that. You're taking them on, I mean, there is that old proverb, when you marry somebody, you marry their family. And that's more about like in-laws and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But maybe for, the blended families, which are, very common these days, that's part of it as well. I mean, imagine if the Bradys, if, what were the names? There was Carol and what was the guy?
Brenda?
No, do you remember Steve? Was it Steve?
I didn't watch much.
So imagine if they were like, well, these girls can't be here, or these boys can't be here, right?
Or both can't be there anymore.
Yeah, we're gonna start a whole new life. They can all stay with Alice, the housekeeper, right?
Right.
Instead of the 9 slots, in the thing, you've got. Just Alice with the kids on one side, and then the husband and wife having fun off in Acapulco or something. All right, let's go on to the next one. We got another wedding related one. You want to read this one?
Yeah. Am I the asshole for asking my sister what the fudge she expected to happen at her
crap show?
Shit show of a bachelorette party? So for some reason, my 32 female sister, who's all 23, and her fiance, male 25, decided that the very best way to celebrate before getting married was to have a joint bachelorette party at the strip clubs. They also hired a bus limo for the evening. The aftermath was, thus far, 3 breakups, 4 people dropping out of the wedding party, 1 impending divorce, and 1 arrest. The cleaning bill for the limo was more than the original rental fee. Also, she was crying to our mom at dinner the other day, and I snorted. I tried not to, and I honestly did. I was trying my best to just keep my mouth shut. She asked me what was so funny. I said I wasn't sure what she expected to happen getting a group of people drunk, using illicit substances, and getting horned up watching exotic dancers. She said that I was an a-hole for judging her and her friends. I said I wasn't judging them, that literally anyone could have seen that outcome. I told my mom, my mom told me to apologize because my sister is having to replace most of the wedding party on the fly. I did, but I still think I'm right.
This
is the a-hole.
Yeah, this is quite a case. I mean, she didn't do anything other than laugh a little bit at something that is tough not to laugh at, you know? I mean, quite a setup to this, right? 3 breakups, 4 people dropping out of the wedding party, 1 divorce, and 1 arrest. That's quite a toll that this joint bachelorette party is taking on the wedding party. I mean,
was this The Hangover Part 4? What is this?
Yeah, where it's like both genders. Yeah.
Yeah, like I just feel like this might just be a pose, like someone that has just come up with like the most insane thing. Like, if it is true, like, yeah, I don't know. It's not great, like her laughing, but I wouldn't call her an a-hole for it.
No, I mean, if you have a family where the youngest daughter thinks that this is a great idea, and then the mom doesn't like step in and say, wow, this is a terrible idea. What the hell are you thinking? I think it's plausible that the mom would be, you know, taking the sister's side and saying, you know, you shouldn't be laughing at this. This is a serious matter. And it's kind of
stifling a laugh herself.
Well, I don't know. I mean, people have all sorts of misplaced priorities. So it seems like the older sister is like a normal person. And I think a normal person probably would laugh at this sort of thing. Either that or they'd be like shocked and in horror. Mm-hmm. The mom and the younger sister and the fiance seem like people with really screwed up priorities, you know? I mean, I'd
just
be
really bad judgment.
There you go. Yeah. So that, I mean, I'm laughing at that one. Just the idea of it is pretty funny. So yeah, let's.
The only other thing is like I can just remember being like early 20s, and this might have been to that pre-fully developed frontal cortex brain.
Yeah,
maybe a good idea,
but a party like that takes a while to plan, so it's not just like impulse control, right? It's and both of them had to be in on it. The 2 fiancés, and you know, presumably the mom knew what was going on. So the older person should have given some good counsel or something like that.
You'd hope.
Yeah.
But doesn't mean just because you're old does not make you automatically wise.
No. As Aristotle pointed out, there's immaturity in years and there's immaturity in mind. And boy, do we have a lot of people like that. All right. Should we do the next one?
Yeah, so yes. That's you.
Okay. Am I the a-hole for staying at my daughter's boyfriend's house? Now, that's with the title. You're like, what? What? How are you getting that? A storm knocked out my 48-year-old female power out 3 days ago, and it came back on yesterday. When the power went out, I figured my daughter, Jen, 19, could stay with her boyfriend, Arthur, 21, and I'd stay with my boyfriend, 51, male. I asked my boyfriend if I could stay with him for a couple days, and he kept giving me excuse after excuse, so I dropped it. I guess Arthur heard my conversation because he told me I could stay with him and his dad too, and I accepted. Long story short, Jen and I got home today and my boyfriend asked where I stayed. I told him and he flipped out. He called me an a-hole because he didn't like the fact I was staying with other guys. He didn't care that it was my daughter's boyfriend and his dad. He's not letting it go. So I guess I'm here for my own peace of mind. Am I the a-hole for staying at my daughter's boyfriend's house?
No.
Yeah, definitely not. What about her boyfriend? What do you think he's?
Oh, massive a-hole.
Yeah.
Like it feels like he's either controlling or hiding something that he wouldn't allow her to stay over.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that.
Oh, the hiding part?
Yeah.
He's being super, like, cagey, at least from the description here. And so, like, who else does he have over at his house? And oftentimes those people who, I guess, are doing something kind of nefarious or cheating will
project
that, exactly.
Yeah.
And so maybe he was cheating, and because she was with another older man of their similar age, that he's making that assumption that she's doing the same thing that he is.
Yeah. I think there's two other important factors in this. One, he had the chance to have her come over, and he turned her down. And he gave excuse after excuse, she says, right? So it wasn't just, no, it's not a good time, I don't have power, whatever. He's making up all sorts of stuff. And then the other thing is, it would be different if she was like, I just want to go have a sleepover with my daughter's boyfriend and his dad, nothing's going on. But with this, the power's out. So not being able to differentiate between situations that are emergency situations, essentially, and everyday situations, sounds like the boyfriend has got some perspective problems here as well, right?
Unless he's like some guy that lives off the grid and like just thinks that power is not like an emergency situation. I have no idea when or where this was. It's a storm. A storm knocked out the power, so It's like it wasn't good weather. I don't know.
When I was a kid, I think it was the winter of '77, we ended up staying with another family in our neighborhood for over a week because they had a generator and power was out for, like a week. We stayed at our place for one day, heating stuff up in the fireplace, and then my dad was like, pack all our stuff up. We're heading off to the Shankies, and we got the tractor going and piled all the things in the back, and we, I had sleds tied to it as well, and we moved in with them, and it was pretty close quarters. But that's what you do when things break down, right?
Yeah, like I'm trying to like. Okay, maybe let's think of this in a Kantian ethic.
Okay.
Should your significant other provide you housing when your housing doesn't meet its needs for a short period of time?
Yeah.
If not, should all then they automatically not do that? And if that doesn't happen, when should one get actually angry for them finding adequate housing in the first place?
Yeah. I was actually considering, and I've never actually thought this out, and I've taught Kant now for over 20 years, this jealousy aspect. Can you universalize this notion of like, almost like ownership? It's funny because Kant is famous for having defined marriage as I don't have the exact wording, but it's like a contract to use of each other's bodies, which, okay, you kind of get where he's coming from. He's very into legalistic stuff.
Right. There's definitely more to it than that, but like, sure, as if you want to be, I guess, reductionist and Kantian and
yeah. Maybe Kant isn't really the person to turn to for this. Maybe we want to look at this like in a utilitarian way and say, okay, what works out the best for just about everybody except for Grumpy Gus over here, who is...
Yeah, I think utilitarian is a much better framework. So what's going to create the most happiness or well-being for the most people?
Yeah.
He didn't do his bit to like increase that happiness, and her subsequent decision decreased his happiness. And apparently hers as well.
Yeah, and I think a utilitarian of certain sorts could even say, there's a kind of commitment that you're making when you're romantically involved with somebody that you're going to help take care of them when things get difficult. So if you're not willing to let somebody stay at your place when the power's out, should you really be involved with them?
Right.
Maybe they're not relationship material,
Yeah. It's like, otherwise you're not even a good friend if that's your...
That's right. Yeah.
It doesn't even have to be romantic. Unless you're only using them for like a sex or something, like that would be like it.
Then you're not even friends with benefits. You're just benefits.
Right.
So, yeah. All right, let's go on. Let's check out the next one. Now, this is an interesting one.
So, am I the a-hole for acting superior at my middle school reunion? I, 23 female, in middle school, I was excluded and treated really harshly by my fellow classmates. I lived in a predominantly Asian area and am Asian myself, but I was never seen as Asian enough by most of my other peers because I was chubby and I didn't do well in school. Neurodivergent. They would constantly be passive-aggressive to me and act like I was a pest whenever I was trying to genuinely be nice. So I started resenting them and hanging out with other people who actually accepted me. Today, I changed a lot. I lost a ton of weight after high school, and I made friends with a photographer who helped me get a startup with modeling. I'm nowhere near as successful as Naomi Campbell, but I do high-fashion editorial modeling. I'm proud of my position, and I'm aware that I'm very fortunate to be in the position that I am in. Yesterday night was my middle school reunion. I have a good group of friends I've known since middle school, so we were all together. When we arrived, I felt uncomfortable and only spoke to my group or the people who didn't treat me like crap. Whenever one of the people who used to act badly towards me tried to speak to me, I just ignored them, continuing to talk and not looking at them at all. I didn't see any issue. They did the same thing to me, but apparently it irritated one of the dudes. This one posted my low test score to humiliate me in middle school. He came up to me and was trying to talk to me, but I just ignored him. He started telling me I thought I was better than everyone else and I was acting like a stuck-up prick. I replied that I am better than everyone else, and that's why I have a more successful career. We then had some back and forth because I mentioned that he treated me like crap, so he couldn't act entitled to me, my time or respect. At that point, my friends told me to let's just leave. I personally feel like you dish out what you get. They all did the same stuff to me in middle school. My friends were all on my side, but some of them felt like I could have tried to be nice to keep the peace. Am I the a-hole? What do you think, Rick?
I think there's a half a-hole-ish behavior there. And I don't actually have a problem with snubbing people who snubbed you. I don't think that you have a duty to talk to everybody at a reunion when you haven't seen them for a very long time. It's what we could call a supererogatory duty, right? Where it's above and beyond. That's what supererogatory means. It means above what can be asked or what can be demanded. So it would have been nice if she would have buried the hatchet and showed herself as not still being in a middle school mentality, but there's no obligation to do so. But when the guy said, "You're acting like a stuck-up prick," and she replies, "I am better than everyone else, and that's why I have a more successful career," I think that's crossing the line into a-holery at that point. And, you could say, well, she was hurt in the past. She's back in a situation where she's feeling all those feelings from way back then. But, you know, as an adult, there's different ways of handling that. And she chose to go to the reunion. What did she think was going to happen going to the reunion, right? So I don't know. I think she's not a complete a-hole, but she's kind of an a-hole.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, the first thing, this is a middle school reunion. Middle school sucks. Everyone
That's true.
hopped up on hormones that they've never had experienced before. Like, middle school kids suck. They get better. They
all
so
tease
much
each
better.
other. They bully each other. They're mean to each other. Yeah.
Like, just in general, middle school is usually not the best years of one's life. And so there's everything, unless I don't know exactly how, if like everyone went to the same high school after, or they dispersed.
I've never gone to a middle school reunion, nor ever heard of a middle school reunion, but I guess it must be a thing.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. So like, for the context, like this all seems very juvenile and middle school mentality. And maybe because you're going back to a middle school, you're going back to your middle school mannerisms. Like, I understand, like, going back and seeing old friends,
yeah,
and kind of slip into old mannerisms and old jokes that are relevant to that particular group. And so maybe they're just primed,
yeah,
a little bit to be like the pubescent preteens and teens that they were at that moment in their life.
Would it make a difference if this is like a 10-year middle school reunion as opposed to like a 30-year middle school reunion? Would be more willing to say, okay, so 10 years after middle school, so eighth grade ends, you're around.
Well, she's 23, so this is definitely like the 10 years.
Okay, yeah. So
yeah, 8th grade, you're like 12 or 13.
Yeah. So this is probably her tenure. Would you be more willing to cut her some slack than if she's going to her 30 year and she would be a...
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
She's still 23. I agree that she kind of, veered a little bit into the a-holery. The other guy seemed to be annoyed that she was not talking to him, but she doesn't exactly owe him that, as you said.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a little a-holery to go around here.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'll say this before we close this one out. If you go to a reunion, you really ought to be prepared to run into people who you probably didn't like that much. I mean, unless you got along with everybody in high school. And, maybe there's some sort of moral obligation to try to get along rather than like rub people's noses and things. But I don't know. I mean, where I went to school, everybody got bullied, but there was like the people who really, really badly got bullied. And then there were the rest of us. So I don't presume to speak for the people who really were terribly traumatized. Maybe they get to be jerks, when they go back. Was
like Dazed and Confused a documentary for you?
My stuff was before that.
Ah.
So it would be more like, some of the movies in the 80s where people, The Breakfast Club, great example,
Okay.
That was sort of contemporary with us at the time. By the way, this is a total digression. My mom was a pretty interesting person. And she actually she took movies pretty seriously. So she saw The Last Temptation of Christ when that came out in the theaters, and it was super controversial. Said that restored her faith in Jesus, seeing a actual like human Jesus who could have sexual fantasies and stuff like that. She'd grown up in the pre-Vatican II church where, Jesus was this wonderful divine character and you didn't dare question anything, right?
Yeah.
But she also saw The Breakfast Club. And we'd seen it, my sister and I, and she saw it. I think she saw it at a friend's house, and she came home and she was in tears. And she said, "Oh, I saw The Breakfast Club. Now I understand how hard it is for you kids." And we were like, We're not like those people in the Breakfast Club. We don't even have the same kind of like clicks that they do, We call that kind of person sort of like a whatever Bender was, or Bendler, we call those guys burnouts. Obviously we had jocks and nerds and stuff like that, but it was funny to see. But you could, she would watch those sort of things, and popular culture helped her kind of process things. So. Yeah. All right. Well, we should get back to looking at, and we got a really juicy one here.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Am I the a-hole for slut shaming a slut shamer? I admit this is petty, but some mutual friends think I'm the a-hole and doesn't seem to rise to the level of a-hole to me, so another opinion would be helpful. I, 19-year-old female, am not sexually active by choice, not for any moral reason. I just want to focus on university without extra complications, and I'd rather my first be with somebody I care about and feel completely comfortable with. Guys get weird about it when sex comes up. Either they fetishize it, turn it into a challenge, or they lose interest. The guys that get all excited about a 0 body count are the worst, and it's my number one dating pet peeve. There's a guy we'll call Bob that hangs around my friend group because he's one of the other guy's roommate. Bob has good moments, but he acts like a major douche canoe when dating or sex comes up, brags about sleeping with a lot of girls, but also looks down on them for being loose. I try to avoid Bob. Anyway, Bob asked me out before Thanksgiving break. Like 2 days before that, I heard him talking to one of the guys about a girl he went on a date with, and he said he hit it and quit it because he doesn't date sluts. So when Bob asked me out, I said, no thanks. He pressed for a reason, and I told him that I heard him talk about all of his hookups, and I don't date sluts. You should have seen the look on his face. He said it really wasn't that many, and he was exaggerating a little. I'm wife material, so he's not looking to hook up. I said if his body count was over 0, he was too easy to be husband material. Bob lost his crap about it, and the friend group is split. Some think it's hilarious, and Bob got a taste of his own medicine. Others think it was wrong to slut shame him, even if he is kind of a bell end. I think this is hilarious myself.
Also, I'm expecting British, just with the bell end at the end there.
Right, yeah. Well, and it said uni too. I changed that to university. So, but yeah, what do you make of it? To me, this seems like just applying standards universally.
Yeah. He didn't. Like, besides the rhyme, like the rhyme is fine. It's just rubbing it in a little bit, but that is so harmless. I don't see anything that she did here that would cause a group to split over.
Well, I think that's in part because a lot of people do have these rather double standard ideas about sexuality, right? Mm. So it wouldn't be surprising if some of them were also some of the girls in the group.
Right. And I assume that she heard this quip that she's now modified this on.
About the body count?
If his body count was over 0, he was too easy to be, which I assume to be wife material instead of husband material.
Yeah.
And turnabout is fair play in this regard.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to impose these sort of standards on women as a man, you've got 0 cause to complain if women want to apply those exact same standards to you.
What is this? The Madonna and the harlot? I think these are the 2 archetypes that, at least within our Western culture, that are like, you either want to have the pure, or you want the someone that's like great between the sheets, right?
Yep.
But then you have this issue because neither of these 2 can meet, and then what are you expected to do when you find a wife? I don't know.
Yeah.
He's definitely the a-hole in this, that he had his own standards applied to him, and he was upset by that, and that means that you have a double standard.
I would go so far as to say the others who think it was wrong to slut shame him, they're kind of a-holes too. What do you think about that idea? Plausible or implausible?
So I'm just thinking about the idea of slut shaming him in the first place, and he he's constantly doing it, so that is his criteria.
Yeah.
And so if they accepted that in the past and are now not accepting it now, then they are also applying the double
They're
standard.
being inconsistent. Yeah.
Yeah. So in that case, I would call them the a-holes if they were at least agreeing, or at least tacitly agreeing, to his statements beforehand.
Okay. I think we have time for maybe one more.
One?
So let's take, this short one. I'll just read it real quick and then see what you think about it. Am I the a-hole for calling my friend neurotypical? Me, 16-year-old female, and my friend, 15-year-old female, were hanging out at school. We started talking about this game where the main focus is socialization. She begged me to play it, but I still refused. Thankfully, she let it go. A few days later, the topic comes up again, and I decline once again, explaining it's difficult for me to approach people and hold conversations, as I struggle a lot with social anxiety and autism. She tells me that it's not that hard, and I just need some confidence. We got into an argument. I told her she doesn't understand because she's neurotypical and won't know what it's like. To make something clear, I know she's neurotypical because she's gone to get tested before and hasn't had anything new come up from what I know. She quickly got angered, called me childish, and hasn't spoken to me in 2 weeks. Am I the a-hole? What do you think?
Oh, okay. No, she's not the a-hole. I guess is what it comes down to. No.
Okay.
In my opinion. So she's saying, like, I have a different experience than you. And to be an adult is to understand that people's experiences are often different.
Yeah. I think there's enough here to have one a-hole and we can split it between the two of them. Because I think this idea that, you can't possibly know what life is like for me because I have this label that I've picked up that happens to be very trendy right now. Mm-hmm. And you person over there who doesn't have this other label, you can't know that's complete nonsense. I mean, things like this are a spectrum, and you can easily relate to other people's challenges, even if you don't share exactly what it is. Otherwise, we couldn't communicate. We couldn't have empathy. We couldn't do any of these sorts of things. Now, they are young, so maybe we cut them some slack because of that. What do you think?
Yeah, they're 15 and 16. They're filling these things out, and they don't understand the full, experience of life yet. And they're gonna get angry at certain things. They want to be special, and we all want to feel special at least.
Yeah. Now, if they were older, let's say it was 26 and 25, would we cut them as much slack?
No.
Okay.
Then you're stuck in kind of like a more black and white thinking about life, and
exactly that
you can't at all know something. So there's I can't remember the guy. There was some guy who was a biblical scholar, but he was a Muslim. He was a practicing Muslim. And so people were telling him that he couldn't have any right ideas about the Bible, even though he was a scholar of it, because he didn't actually follow that as his religion.
Well, that's interesting.
And so it's like, one can not be part of a group and also knows a lot about the group. It's like,
yeah,
that's what we have, like Jane Goodall as an example, or just any sort of person that's going to study a culture. You don't have to be a part of this culture to understand that culture well. It definitely helps.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, I think we got to finish up. So do you want to take us out on a final quote?
Yeah. So we leave you today with the words of Brad Warner. Even if the whole universe is nothing but a bunch of jerks doing all kinds of jerk-type things, there is still liberation in simply not being a jerk.